Dave Revson, Jerry Donato, and Howard Griffith, thrilled to be in Columbus. We are surrounded by trophies,
Lots of them, right?
There are a lot of trophies.
You take any one you want when you leave?
I don't know exactly how that works. You should test that and then see how it goes, and you'll let us know.
There's a lot of them.
It is pretty clear what the goal is when you come to a program like this. We know they're going to be really good, really competitive. We had a chance to watch them go through practice today. We will, of course, share our impressions here throughout the next hour, but just kind of big picture on what you saw and what stood out.
Yeah, speaking of goals, Ryan Day told the team, it's not going to be a long practice because we're scrimmaging tomorrow, but we're going to go full speed, and I think that's what we saw. I think we saw a team that has a sense of urgency, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't reach their win-loss goals last year. They need to do some better things on defense. They're picking a quarterback. They're trying to fill in the offensive line. I mean, it was a good go, and I think the players did exactly what Ryan said. It wasn't long, but go full speed.
Well, I think that's one of the things that's intriguing about this team. There are things that they have to figure out, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's the offensive line. They're working toward that, whether they need the adjustments that need to happen defensively. So when you talk about having a sense of urgency, it's absolutely there, and attention to detail is there because they know the mistakes that they would have made last year.
And we talk about this when we're here every single year, and I think it's important to preface it. Ohio State is judged by a different standard. I think Michigan is judged by that standard now in the Big Ten as well. Penn State is creeping into wanting to be judged by that standard, and the standard is winning national championships. And again, we're surrounded by national championships here. Ryan Day's 45-6 as the head coach of Ohio State, but people talk a lot more about the 6 than they do about the 45. They talked a lot more about the 2 last year that they lost than about the 11 wins. So as you came in and thought about how you go from 2 to 1 or 0, what were you focused on?
You make a list of your problems on one side of the sheet and your solutions on the other side, right? And the biggest problem perhaps could have been the defense. And you have Jim Knowles, who came from a different environment at Oklahoma State where you weren't expected to win every game. And I think we'll see him make some adjustments from year 1 to year 2. But to me, that's the biggest problem, attaining the goals that they want to attain.
I think one of the things that's going to be interesting as our colleague, James Laurinaitis, is here coaching the linebackers, and it's a great story. But when you watch him coach, when you watch these linebackers really relate and understand what it is that he's talking about and he's asking them to do, I think you're going to see a huge jump from that group. It's a talented group to begin with, but I think he'll be able to get a lot more out of them because they just have he has such an infectious attitude, and he coaches these guys hard, and they understand it.
Yeah, fabulous to see James out here. Did an amazing job as a broadcaster. He was in South Bend last year, now coming home to Ohio State. We have talked about what needs to be fixed is the wrong word, but improved upon. What about the things that jumped out big picture positively at a place where there is just immense talent?
Yeah, I think when you look at the wide receiver position, that's a group that is so talented that it's ridiculous. But the one thing that you can say about, or you can say many things about them, but these guys work. And they have a lot of talent, but they work, and that's important. And that goes to, just the standard that receiver group has really established. Going back to Terry McLaurin, you talk about guys that have really set the tempo for that group. You look at the running back room; that's another talented group. The offensive line, I think they'll be fine. They just have to build up to get to the point where they can really control the line of scrimmage on a regular basis.
Right. So the offensive line, can they match the talent and the efficiency of the skilled positions? I don't think there's any accident. Michigan won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country 2 years in a row. And Ohio State's offensive line has to be in that conversation this year and as we go forward, because the more we talk about the wide receivers and the running backs, which are incredible part of their success, but if you have to beat the teams that are on top right now, you've got to beat Michigan, and you're going to need a really good offensive line to do that. That's, I think, where they're going to go with this offense.
And the other thing to beat Michigan imposed its will on Ohio State, particularly in the last quarter of that game last year. How do you become a team that doesn't allow that to happen? That, to me, seems like kind of the other variable in all of this. And again, we're going to dive further into it when we get to the defense, but just is that toughness that needs to be there up front?
Toughness might be part of it, and the way you find out what it is, you watch the tape and you say, is it coaching or is it playing? And I think you add a very important part of it. Are we tough enough to stop that type of a downhill run game? Because if we can't, we're going to have trouble winning the conference.
Well, they've seen it, right? They've seen it, and they understand what the expectation is, and I don't think it's not maybe or it's very clear what it is that they need to do to be better, to win a Big Ten championship, to compete for the national title, because that's what it's about here. And you mentioned it already. It's about winning championships here, and that's how you have to be able to do it, is controlling the line of scrimmage.
And I think the good news is, since they're trying to rebuild an offensive line, I mean, that's a position of toughness that they will help make their defensive front tougher, because the emphasis is on, we got to get this offensive line going. And so it'll work hand in hand to be better against the Michigan run. By being better in the offensive line here at Ohio State helps you make it better against Michigan.
We're going to dive into all of this. We'll take a closer look at both sides of the ball, have plenty of great interviews coming up here in the next hour. The quarterback spot in Columbus, always in the spotlight, and few schools have the kind of track record OSU does under center. Going back to the start of Ryan Day's time at Ohio State, J.T. Barrett, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud have all put up mind-boggling numbers, combining to average nearly 4,000 yards and more than 40 TDs per season. So whomever steps in, Kyle McCord or Devin Brown, has some major shoes to fill and a great coach to guide them through it.
Guys, thanks for taking the time. I would ask first, you guys are in a quarterback battle, but that's what everybody asks you, so I won't go there. I do want to talk about your number.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, we're looking for you on the roster. I'm going up and down, and then when I figure out it's 33. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so, 33 is the original quarterback number. Sammy Baugh was the first quarterback inducted in the Hall of Fame. Wore 33, and that's kind of how it came about when I was a younger kid. My whole family kind of wore 33 too. I've been wearing it ever since I was 7 years old, playing my first season of tackle football.
So tell me, what was the response of the coaches, and what was your response when he walks in the room, where you walk out to practice with that on?
No, he said something to me, I think freshman year, about wearing it, and I was like, well, shoot, if you like it, go for it. And then I ended up wearing 15 last year, and then first day of spring ball, it took some time getting used to it, but he rocks it well. Looks good.
It's like, what are you doing over here in our group? So what has been the response from some of your other teammates?
Yeah, it's been hit or miss. A lot of the guys like it. Nobody really cares at the end of the day if I like it. That's what matters. But no, the coach's first response, when I remember freshman year when I was like, I want 33, and they're like, get out of here. You're not wearing 33. We're 15. It's like, all right. But they let me go through with it this year, so I'm excited.
What's this process been like for you guys? You work together. Clearly, you feel like you guys have a relationship, but you're both competing for a job that you both really want. So what is that like for you?
Yeah, I think it's been really good, really healthy. Once CJ left, obviously Devin and I both knew what it was going to be. And I think all off season in the weight room and spring ball, and then out here running, whatever it is, just pushing each other. And I think he definitely brings the best out of me, and vice versa. So it's been a healthy competition, and one that's getting the best for both of us.
Yeah, basically what Kyle said as well. We both came to Ohio State because we wanted to compete and play with the best. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. We've always had the best quarterbacks at Ohio State, so that's why we wanted to come here and be one of the best. So we're just getting each other better every day. Like you said, at the end of the day, we're still best friends no matter what. We're just having a good time and playing ball with our friends.
What's it like? Everyone talks about this unbelievable wide receiver room. What's it like when you guys have an opportunity, particularly in 7-on-7, where do you want to throw the football?
Yeah, it makes life a lot easier. When you got guys like Marvin Harrison and Emeka Buka, Julian Fleming. The list goes on, and makes life a lot easier, like I said.
You guys have watched what C.J. Stroud went through and the pressure of playing this position. And I kind of tell people all the time, you have to learn how to be the quarterback at Ohio State. Take me inside. Is that a part of the process?
100%. Kind of getting a front row seat to watching C.J. do it the last 2 years was an honor. And, I think he handled it extremely well. Everything, that he did off the field, and then, handling everything off the field as well. I thought he did a really good job. And, just kind of picking his brain on, bits and pieces here and there was really helpful for me moving forward.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be able to room with CJ before every game and all of fall camp. So just to be able to pick his brain and get to see exactly what his routine was and what he had to go through, I feel like it's really helped me, and I feel like it's given me a good chance.
The starting quarterback has to be able to do what for the Buckeyes?
I think lead. Lead is the biggest thing. Obviously with all the talent and everything going on, people want to get caught up in that. But at the end of the day, regardless of where you're playing quarterback, I think the biggest thing is just being the leader of the team and ultimately bringing the guys to victory.
Coach Hartline, tell me about him. What's he like?
He's great. He's energetic. He's always juiced up at practice. I mean, big player, little play. He's always fired up if his receivers are getting the ball.
Oh, if the receivers are.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a talented running back room.
Yep.
You guys get a front row seat to that. You hand it off and kind of take a sneak peek and find yourself watching sometime.
Yep, 100%. I think that is honestly one of the most underrated rooms, I think, on this team. You know, we got, really 5-6 guys that can play. And, like we saw last year, it takes all of them. You never know who's going to have to step up into that role. So, we know we have, 5-6 guys that we can roll with.
You talk about a little bit about the offensive line.
Offensive line's been doing a really good job. There's a lot of moving pieces. Not everybody returned like we would have liked, but we got 2 new tackles in the game, a new center in the game. It's going to be a little confusing and chaos at first, but they've done a really good job. They've been in the film room studying their stuff with Coach Fry and Mike Seleni, so they've done an amazing job.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time. Good luck through the battle.
The Bucks open with a conference game against Indiana. The non-conference slate highlighted by their first visit to South Bend in nearly 30 years. Challenging crossovers, including visits to defending West champ Purdue, West favorite Wisconsin, and a home game against a good Minnesota team. They host Penn State in October, and as always, finish the season against Michigan, with the game this year being played in Ann Arbor.
My spirit's uplifted. Hey, I know that we gifted. My goal is to get it. Hey, I roll for my children. I'm telling them thank you. Wa alaikum salam. They did it before me. I carry it on.
It's a pretty good place to start talking about the offense. Marvin Harrison Jr., part of an incredibly talented receiving group here at Ohio State. We all know the biggest focus is on the quarterback. What did you guys see as you watched the 2 QBs, McCord and Brown, go through the reps today?
Well, I'd say this: if the coaches that spend every day with them can't make a decision, I certainly could. I mean, it's obviously a close competition. There's probably no one better to make that decision than Ryan Day. As many quarterbacks as he's coached. I'm guessing it's a coin flip, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that they're going to have to continue to go through practice. They're going to have to evaluate the scrimmages which they have coming up. And I think that'll give them a better idea of who ultimately is going to be able to lead the team. And the reality is, you could see both of these guys at some point this season. And it's going to be the guy who doesn't turn the football over and puts them in position to win football games.
What about the offensive line? To me, that's the other big question mark. I know you both came into here wanting to see how that unit fit together. What stood out to you, Howard?
To be quite honest, we don't know. And I'll tell you why. Because in most games, they will be able to dominate their opponent. But when we're at Ohio State, we talk about Ohio State, it's about winning national titles. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I think they'll continue to get better. When you talk about being in an athletic group, this group is really talented when you watch them move around, when you watch them bend in hand placement and some of those things. But you just don't know what it's going to look like versus the elite teams. You don't know what it's going to look like when they have to go against Penn State, when they have to go against Michigan, and if you're in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I think, Howard, the one thing we do know is they're very athletic.
Yes.
The one difference in this offensive line at Ohio State than the previous ones, you could always tell the tackles from the guards, really, right?
Yeah,
because physically,
no doubt. Yeah.
They're not that way. They're more the same size, meaning the guards and the tackles. I think the portal has helped them in the offensive line. Yeah. So a little bit unlike the quarterbacks, which is a coin toss to me. I think it's fair to say that they're on their way to replacing most of the offensive line, and they're certainly athletic enough to do that.
Those were the question marks. You already have the answers at running back and wide receiver. There's a ton of talent out on this field, no doubt about it. That Buckeyes offense overpowering a season ago. Second in the nation in scoring, first in yards per play for the second straight season. They led the Big Ten in scoring offense, pass efficiency, and total offense. Longtime coordinator Kevin Wilson is gone, heading to Tulsa as the head coach. Wide receiver coach Brian Hartline takes over the attack, a task he discussed with Jerry.
Coach, you were a great player here. You were an assistant coach, and now the offensive coordinator of your alma mater. What's that feel like?
Pretty surreal. You can't really get caught up in all that. I think it was more surreal probably back in January when we were having these conversations. But at this point, we're off and rolling. Very humbled every day, not only with the staff that we have, but to be in the position I'm in. It's pretty remarkable. If you would have asked me 7 years ago if this would be the case, I would have laughed at you. So I wake up daily pretty, knowing I'm blessed, but it's a lot of responsibility.
Other than the play calling, which I'm guessing that hasn't been decided yet, what are some of the other things that you've taken on that, as an assistant coach, not as a coordinator, that you will be doing? Yeah,
I think once you're handling everything, from the recruiting aspect to just the development of players and culture. As a player, I always felt very disappointed when I ever made any kind of mistake. As a position coach, I feel like every time a player in our room makes a mistake, it's my mistake. So as though players feel, one or two mistakes a day, I feel the combination of all, 15 guys going and the one or two mistakes. I got 30 mistakes. So that weighs on you. Well, now when you get to offensive coordinator and the role you're in, you feel the weight of every room. The running backs, if there's a mistake, if there's a scripting problem, any of those, they're all on myself. And that's how I view that. I hold myself accountable. So now you just feel the weight of it all. And it's a blessing, but it's also a responsibility.
You take over in a time when you don't have a returning starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most important thing that the quarterback that wins the job will demonstrate?
I would say, first of all, we're blessed with the best QB evaluators and coaching in college football. So I'll rely heavily on their, take and their opinion and being in their meeting rooms. But I would say, consistency, being the same guy every single day is worth its weight in gold in sports. Knowing what you're going to get. The guys that are a coin flip makes you nervous. You don't want to be nervous, especially with that position. Their command, their culture, we talk a lot about. It's not what we do. It's how we do it that defines us. So the quarterback not breaking the huddle, but how he breaks the huddle. How he commands his guys. Not that he is a quarterback, but how he's a quarterback will ultimately, help determine that situation. And again, Coach Day, Coach Dennis, that whole room got great leadership, and they're being evaluated constantly every day.
The other question marks, offensive line. Tell us about some of the guys that you think are going to step in.
Yeah, I think Coach Fry's doing a phenomenal job. We had a couple guys come from the portal and come into Ohio State this year. They've done a great job buying in culturally. That's number one. And I think the football part of it's now showing its head. In spring, you're a little, we're learning. We're learning some. We're kind of figuring it out. And now this fall, you can tell how much they've progressed with the amount of work they've put in. We have some competition. Competition breeds growth. When you don't have the competition, that's really where your hamstring is. You're a little struck there. You're a little. So whether it be the tight ends competing, the O-line competing, and then the quarterback competition, it's phenomenal. It's going to get the best out of each individual, and we feel that progressing.
Brian, I have this theory that of all the people that come into the stadium, of all the coaches and the players, the one that makes the most difference on game day is the offensive coordinator. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Stroud winds up, throws a deep ball sideline, caught, touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr., marvelous!
And it's Brian Williams breaking tackles, bouncing outside, touchdown Ohio State!
First down and 10 to the 19, and intercepted! Wow! JT Tuimoloau has had the game of his life.
A ton of star power back for Ohio State. No school in the conference returns more All-Big Ten players than the Bucks. Year 5 for Ryan Day in Columbus. Gone pretty well early on in his tenure. Just 6 total losses, with 3 coming in the college football playoff and 2 coming against rival Michigan. Only Nick Saban has a higher win percentage as a head coach than Day does over the last 5 years. Ryan Day is with me now. Really enjoy getting to watch your team today. What do you like about them the most this point at camp?
We've had a good summer leading up to the first practice, and now that we're in the teeth of the preseason, I like our maturity. I think this is probably the most mature group we've had probably since 19, just across the board. Very, very talented. The focus has been on competition, competing, being tough, and being smart. And that's what the team's focused on right now. But very businesslike, and coming off of last season's finish, a lot of hunger.
How do you define maturity? Like, what do you see out there that makes you think this is a mature team?
Well, the first thing is when you look at 2 years ago, we went to that Minnesota game, the first game. I think there was 1 or 2 guys that had ever started a game at Ohio State. That's so much different this year. You look at Tommy Eichenberg and Steele and JT and Denzel, and you go through all the list of Josh Proctor. I mean, these guys who have played, Lathan Ransom, these guys have played a lot of football. And so there's that part of it, but then there's also just, the way that they approach their work every day. I like the way that they're coming in. I like the way that they're preparing. I like the seriousness of it. And there's some scars there too, which is great. And I think that gives us an edge going into the season.
Some transition, no doubt. You have a new offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline. I mean, I know you've worked with him for a while here, so this isn't introducing his culture to your culture or anything like that, or his ideas to yours. But still, it's a change. It's a transition. How has that worked? Like, what are the challenges of kind of moving him to that position and integrating your beliefs?
Well, when Kevin left, we kind of kept everything pretty much the way it was. It's just Brian now has a different role in that room, and he's very, very talented in terms of not only what he knows, but also connecting with players. And when you become a coordinator, it's all different. I think everybody thinks it's just about calling plays, like you just dial it up on a sheet. It's all about the organization, the day-to-day, the scripts, the watching film, making sure everything is in order, and then it's got to come down to the game planning and how well we can put it on the field. So those are all things that he's working through for the first time. I think Justin Fry has been excellent, and he's been through this before. He knows it, and he's been a huge help.
A huge part of this, of course, is the QB battle. There's intense scrutiny, as you know, whenever the quarterback battle at Ohio State opens up. It's pretty amazing how you split the reps today with Kyle and Devin, having two fields going at once. I mean, you're getting a ton of reps for each guy. Ultimately, when you make this decision, like what do you base a decision like this on? What are the biggest factors you watch?
I think, like you said, the more work that they get, the more reps that they get, it paints the picture over time. At times you walk off the field and you say, okay, that's our guy. And then you come off the next day, you're like, that's our guy. So what you have to do is you have to continually get reps and then come up for air and then kind of sort through it all. And some of it's going to be the numbers. What it looked like in practice, who moved the team, what's the completion percentage, how many turnovers, did they take care of the ball. But then part of it is the eye test and how the team's responding to each of the quarterbacks.
When do you want to have a decision?
I don't know. I mean, you'd love to have one, in the next week, but we're not going to do it until we feel ready. We're not going to be held to a deadline. But the last couple quarterback battles we've had, it's sorted itself out here in the next week.
How's the offensive line come together?
Yeah, I'm pleased with where we're at right now. I think the addition of Jimmy Simmons has been huge for us, and then Luke Montgomery really has done a nice job as well. So between those two, you have Tegra and you have Josh Fryer. There's 4 tackles that are competing like crazy. You have Donovan and Matt that have both come back at guard, and then Carson and Vic are both competing at center. I kind of like where we're at right now, but some battles to be won.
You mentioned scar tissue, and I think some of that is probably from the defense. Performance the last couple of games was not at the level that it had been earlier in the year. When you know that in a lot of ways your season comes down to those big games, what's the balancing act between getting all your fundamentals in, making sure everyone knows what you're doing, and focusing on, okay, what are we going to do defensively to win those games?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the long term, and it's like building a foundation of a house. And when you build it the right way, it'll sustain later on in the season. And the issues are going to be the issues week in and week out. We have to build the right foundation now, but then also make the adjustments as the weeks go on in September and October as we make the run in November. So it's about building the foundation now. I think that's being done, but we've got to do a great job during the season making the adjustments that need to be made.
How do you look at expansion from a program like yours? You recruit all over the country. You've had players from just about everywhere. You look through this roster. You can go anywhere and get players. Does it change recruiting in any way? How does it change how you think about your program?
I haven't quite wrapped my mind around the new addition. I feel like when USC and UCLA came in, it was like, okay, that's unique because those are 2 teams that are kind of isolated out there in LA. Now you have 2 more teams on the West Coast. So a lot to process. I do think it helps in recruiting. I'm so focused on this team right now, I haven't really thought a whole bunch about it. But I think it's exciting for the Big Ten.
Gene Smith announcing his retirement. I know how close you guys are. What has he meant to you?
Yeah. Well, first off, when everything happened in 18 and 19, the opportunity that he provided me and my family, will forever be grateful for him. First-time head coach, didn't conduct a college search, a head coaching search. Saw what he saw in 18, and trusted that I could take it over from Urban. And what can I say? I mean, what he's done here, the 19 years, all the different people he's had an impact on, and he's allowed us an opportunity to hire the best staff in America. The answer's always been yes. But when you think about someone's legacy, you think about the impact they made on people. You think about all the championships he's won and everything like that. It's great. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to the impact he had on people, and I'm one of them. He changed my life forever.
Ryan Day, really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Great seeing you.
Come back to Columbus, Ohio State getting ready for its season opener against Indiana. Dave Jerry Howard back with you. Let's turn our focus to this Buckeyes defense. And I think, just to be honest, if you have to put a finger on why Ohio State didn't play for the Big Ten championship last year and why they didn't play for the national championship last year, you look at the Michigan game, you look at the Georgia game, and Howard, the defense just did not come up big when they needed them to. What did you see here today as they look to, Ryan Day was saying they've got scars. They got scar tissue. What did you see today as they try to work off of that?
And I think they're trying to get to a point where they're not giving up those big plays that happen in those critical moments. And that's what they have to be able to do. They have to be able to control that line of scrimmage, as we talk about on the offensive side, being able to run the ball when you want to. They have to be able to make teams one-dimensional. You have to be able to get the pressure that's needed on the quarterbacks, and you need the corners and safeties to be able to hold up under pressure.
I think this is something that we're going to see a significant change in their defense, and here's why. You think about Coach Knowles. He was at Oklahoma State, right? Make something happen on defense. You can give up the big play and still win the games in some of his league games. Now he's at a place where you can't lose a game. I mean, the expectation is that you win every game. He's a smart guy. He is going to make the adjustments. Ryan Day turning over the offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline. We don't know who's going to call plays, whether it's going to be Ryan, whether it's going to be a combination, but that allows Ryan to attend to anything that is going on defense. So I come away saying that Jim Knowles will adjust, because this is the second year at Ohio State and the first time in his coaching career where you have to win every game. And if that means changing what you've been doing your entire defensive coordinator life, you change it.
And the games you particularly have to win are the Michigan game, 172 rushing yards in the fourth quarter against Michigan. It's a staggering number. And then, of course, if you get in the college football playoff, you combine those last two games, 8 plays of 45 yards or longer allowed. How do you cut down on big plays? Like, philosophically, what do you do to get your defense into a position where that doesn't happen?
I think what it comes down to is being assignment sound. You can't afford to make mistakes. You really can't when you're playing in the games that you just described, because that other team on the other side is just so talented. So you have to be able to minimize your mistakes. Everyone has to be assignment sound, and you have to understand that you have to do your job. Everyone has an assignment to what they need to do. You need to do your job and not be nosy trying to make a star play. Just make your play.
I'd say you go and watch over and over again, and I think Coach Knowles has done this. You watch the games you lost, and you write down why you lost them, and you never let it happen again. And all the other games, let somebody else watch them. But watch the games that you lost. That's the life you live here. You don't remember all the wins, but you never forget the losses.
It'll be fascinating to see what adjustments are made, and I think the truth of the matter is we might not know just how good those adjustments are until we get to those games at the end of the season. The issue for the Bucs defensively over the last couple of years has come when they match up with the best opponents on their schedule. The last two games in 21 were the Michigan game and the Rose Bowl win. Last year it was the matchup with the Wolverines and their CFP loss. The Bucs have gone 21-1 in those first 11 games in the last 2 years combined, and 1-3 in the last two. Defense holds the key again this year. Here's Jerry with coordinator Jim Knowles.
Coach, year two as the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, how's it different in year one?
Well, the players have a better knowledge of the system, and it allows them to play faster and more aggressive. That's the bottom line. If you can see the forest through the trees, you know what everybody else is doing, you know where you fit, you know when you can take chances.
Every defensive coordinator in the country breaks down their tape, and they go through the big plays. You everyone else that's coaching the same position you're in. When you get big plays, how do you stop them after watching the cut up?
Well, you have to analyze every single one. You do. I mean, there's no pat answer, or we all would be doing it. You have to look at where the issues were. You have to take responsibility. You have to go back to, how you teach from the beginning and look and see, were there any flaws? All the way down, you got to boil it down to the smallest detail and technique. And then you got to come up with other ways to do things. You got to be willing to change. I've been around long enough, and I think one of the reasons I've been able to stay in the game is that ability to change. You have to look at things and see where you can do better.
Has being at Ohio State made you change maybe more than some other jobs that you've had?
Well, the job's the same.
Right.
The job's the same. The expectations are a lot different.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's still what we do. It's the same thing I always did, because you're responsible to the program and to the players to have answers. I mean, that's what I'm responsible to have answers. But it's just that Ohio State, the expectations are a lot different.
What's the biggest positive in camp so far?
We're getting our hands on more balls. I think that's it's always taken me some time, and I think when you go against a great offense every day, in a way, your players, they don't make as many plays, and making plays is a habit. So we're going against the best receiver in the country. Right. But it's not okay. It's not okay to say, "Well, that was Marv."
Right.
You still have to compete. You got to compete, because excellence is a habit. You can't. You get used to losing every day in practice. You're going to lose in the game. So we're just getting our hands on more balls, playing closer to receivers, reacting better to the coverages.
Appreciate your time and always enjoy watching you work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Strain on the left. Good. Nice job.
Back in Columbus, the Buckeyes D returning a number of big-name players, including defensive lineman JT Tuimoloau, second on the team with 10.5 tackles for loss last year. A couple of his defensive teammates, linebacker Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg with Howard.
Guys, you have an opportunity, your position coach, James Laurinaitis. What's it like having a guy that's such a legendary player here at Ohio State?
I think it's awesome. He gets to coach us. Being such a legend here, but also like his experience and just playing the game as well.
Yeah, I think it's just cool, like being able to ask him questions, just knowing that he's probably gone through the same situations, and just it just adds like another factor of just like trust with him.
Yeah. Tell me some of the things this defense needs to do to get yourselves over the top, to not give up big plays and that sort of thing.
I think just stick to our assignments. I mean, there are some times where we falter out there, but I mean, that's what camp's for. You make mistakes and then you learn from it. So everyone just do their job and then willing to go that +2 that Coach Day and Coach Mick always talk about. I think that's something.
I think, it starts with stopping the run, doing your job and just playing together.
Tell me about the euchre games. Who dominates the euchre games?
You talk about the ones at the hotel or at the house?
At the house.
At the house.
As your roommates.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to that, but tell me about euchre first.
Yeah, we're the Bang Bros. We go against Cade and his girlfriend. We went on a pretty deep slump there, like around November, and then we started to pick it back up at New Year. So
who was the weak link?
It was just bad cards, I think.
That's just the cards.
Yeah, a bunch of 9s and 10s. Terrible.
So who's the messy one in there?
The messy one?
Yeah. And who does the cooking, and who refuses to take the garbage out? All three of those questions you need to answer. Figure it out.
All right.
Messiest, I don't know.
I don't think we have a messy one anymore. I think we've all grown up in that aspect. As far as cooking, Kennedy, Cade's girlfriend, does a lot of cooking. Cade likes to smoke meat a lot. We smoke at the house a lot. What was the other questions? Was that it?
Hey, come on, that was it.
Taking out the garbage.
Who's taking the garbage?
Take out the garbage? We take it out decently, I guess.
Yeah.
Tom, you taking the garbage out?
I do, yeah.
Let me take some out, yeah. Absolutely.
So tell me this, playing at this place, the expectations are always national championships, Big Ten championships. How do you guys manage that quote-unquote pressure that's always on you guys for expectations? Go first, Tommy.
Yeah, I think that's what you sign up for. When you come here, you want to be the best. You want to go to the best place. So, pressure's a privilege. That's what one of my old coaches used to say. So, and we love it.
As far as managing it, I think it's just sticking to the guy next to you. Because the stuff we do, it's hard. The pressure we feel from the outside, it's just once you feel that pressure, you got to lean on the guys next to you. Because everyone goes through pressure in life. We just have a little more highly elevated pressure, so we just got to stick to the guys next to us.
How do you relax?
Listen to music.
What are you listening to?
Right now, my two go-to songs are Palomino Princess by Tommy Booth and Creep by Co Wetzel.
Come on, Tommy, what you got for me?
Relaxing?
Yeah.
Probably just watch TV or something.
What you listening to these days?
Music-wise?
Flatland.
Yeah, Flatland Calvary, some like country a little bit. So.
It was country day, right? It was country earlier part of practice today.
Morton Wallen, yeah.
They rarely do that, though. That's like a treat we get like every couple of weeks. They really have country on.
Well, all right, guys, I really appreciate your time. Have a great season.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ohio State AD Gene Smith announcing on Wednesday that he will retire at the end of this school year. Smith has been OSU's AD for the past 18 years, overseeing a program that won 32 team national championships during his tenure. Gene Smith is with me now. And first of all, Gene, why now?
Well, Dave, I'm just ready. My wife and I had a lot of conversation actually over the years, and in this summer we got deeper into those conversations. And all my mentors and people who I've been blessed to be associated with always told me that you just know when it's time, and I kind of felt that this summer. And so this time I'm blessed to be working with great people, and they're in a good place. So I want someone to be able to come in and take over when you have 523 employees, take over when things are on an upward trajectory. So I feel good about it.
It's been interesting just sitting here with you and watching a lot of the players come by, and thank you. I assume for many of them it's the first time they've seen you since that announcement. What do those relationships mean?
That's it. That's what matters most, And in all my career, I've always tried to focus on the student athlete and what it's like for them. And these guys know. They know that that's what I'm all about. I was in their shoes years ago, so I never forgot that. So every decision we make, we keep the student athlete in mind. So those relationships matter to me a great deal, and that's what I'm going to miss the most out of all of it.
What are you proudest of in your time here at Ohio State?
I think changing our focus and culture around the student-athlete focus, making sure we focus on developing the student-athlete holistically. They're gifted. God gave them a great gift called athleticism, but they're in a situation where we can actually develop them personally. So I want them to be competitive in the classroom, but I also want them to try and understand what it means to have values, to be a person of integrity, to operate with respect. We can develop young people that way a little bit better than the entire institution.
You mentioned the next AD. What will be the biggest challenges for that person who steps into your shoes?
Well, I think the biggest thing is transitioning in, being patient, learn. And but then, the landscape, so many things are changing, what will happen financially. We're a big operation, 36 sports, 1,000 athletes, 523 employees. So you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be a revenue generator. So what does the future look like budgetarily?
One of the big changes, of course, is expansion. You and I were talking about it a little bit before we started recording. Fans look at expansion in one way.
Right.
Athletic departments, I assume, look at it in a myriad of different ways.
That's
so
right.
what are as you ponder what's next, and of course you're going to position Ohio State for that here in the next year, even though you won't necessarily experience it a year from now. But what are you doing to get ready for expansion? How do you think about expansion within an athletic department?
Yeah, I think all of us in the league are really blessed to have the senior women administrators that we have, the deputy athletic directors who've been working on an integration plan, which includes scheduling, which is probably the most important point. So they have a deck that they've already prepared with USC and UCLA. and they've begun the process with Oregon and Washington. And so I think the scheduling piece is critical. How does that ultimately work out? There's no question the money part with our media partners, and just making sure that that works well from our media partners' point of view. But I was back at Iowa State when the old Big 8 moved to the Big 12. So realignment, expansion is not that new to me. There'll be new traditions established. There'll be new experiences established. The first time we go to UT in Oregon will be really cool. And so I just think people have to be open and understand that change is constant. It's going to benefit us, no question about it. But change is constant. Embrace it. Be patient with it.
I know from talking to you through the years how important your family is to you, how important your grandkids are to you. What are you most looking forward to here?
I can't wait to be around them in a more quality and consistent basis. Our grandson Grayson, 13 years old, broke his foot this past weekend. I wish I could have been there to take him to the hospital or be on him about, recovery and those type of things. But, I'm just looking forward to being around them, to being able to go pick them up from school or go to their flag football games and just be around them. And also my 4 children.
Well, Gene, it's kind of hard to imagine Ohio State without you. You've been an amazing partner to us and has really coincided with our time.
Exactly.
The Big Ten Network. Really appreciate all you've done for us through the years.
Thank you.
Enjoy this final year, and I'm sure we'll talk to you before all is said and done.
Well, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Love the BTN. I mean, it's the bomb. We've done a lot of work there.
Wrapping things up here from Columbus as Ohio State counts down to its season opener in Bloomington against Indiana. Dave, Jerry, and Howard back with you. Guys, we had a chance to watch the Buckeyes here. I think the question every time you come to Ohio State is, what needs to happen to win a national championship? Based on what you saw today, how well equipped are they to do that?
Well, I think the offensive line's got to be settled, and they have to make a decision about the quarterback. Those two things on offense, and it looks like they've got the talent in the offensive line. I mean, they've been blessed with great quarterbacks in recent years. So whether there's a great one on the roster or not, I don't know, but they'll make that decision who's going to start.
Well, the quarterback position is going to be important. It really is, because they've got to be able to make plays, but there's so much talent that all of the pressure is not going to be on their shoulders. As you talk about that offensive line continue to improve, I think they'll be able to get that done defensively. Do they have the guys that are going to be able to get after the pass rushers that can make the plays when they need it? Those are all big things, but it's going to be 5 or 6 plays throughout the year. That's really what it's going to come down to when you talk about this team that they have to be able to make. So whether that's a big play, can't give that up. Maybe it's a sack. Maybe it's an interception at a critical moment. I really think it'll be 5 or 6 plays that really will make the difference for this team.
When you're on a team that's this good, and you've certainly experienced this in your time in the NFL, when you know that it's going to come down to just a few plays, how does that impact your mentality? And also knowing that, look, they've got a huge game in South Bend against Notre Dame. I don't want to in any way understate the importance of that one. But when you know, to a large part, you're judged by what happens at the very end of the season, how do you focus?
I think one of the things that happens, and you hear this with championship teams, they're afraid to let their teammate down, the person that's next to them. And that's really the mentality I think you have to have. You got to be able to do your job and know that you're locked in and not worry about what's going on around you, but you don't want to let your teammates down, because this is a team that's been so close, right? And so they go back, and what happens mentally, you're thinking about, well, if I've been able to make that play, or I've been able to make that play. And that's what it comes down to when you're on a team that is this talented and the expectations are where they are.
Yeah, I think in that situation, confidence is a big deal too. And I think the way players gain confidence, the technology is through the roof right now, and they get to see every play that they've practiced on tape. They get to watch their tablets. They'll play a game and go home at night and watch it on a tablet.
Well, let me help you with that. They were watching the game, the practice, maybe 20 minutes after they walked off the field. Right. They have that, and that's how quick it is right now. Yeah.
And when you see yourself do really good things, which you will, because they're taping
There was
everything.
a lot of that. Yeah.
There's a lot of. That's what gives you confidence at the end of the year that we can beat no matter who we play. Yeah. Because I've seen myself do it, and I'm going to do it in this game, because this game is much more important than the previous 11.
First things first, got to get that opener against Indiana. And speaking of the Hoosiers, we are hitting the road. 226 miles from here to Bloomington. We will see you with IU coming up on our next Camp Tour visit here on the Big Ten Network. Thanks so much for watching.